Hey guys, it's Tori from Gaming Mommies, and I just wanted to share with you a tutorial about how to do an easy infinity scarf using an arm knitting technique. Now, it sounds complicated and it sounds like you need to be a knitter, but it really is easy once you kind of wrap your head around it. So give the tutorial a look and hopefully you will be encouraged to give this a try, whether you are an experienced knitter or brand new to crafting. Hopefully this will be helpful for you. So the supplies you need are 2 skeins of yarn. You need a bulky yarn, I would say a 5 or a 6. And the way to tell that is when you have your yarn label, you turn it over on the back and it will have a number. This is bulky 5. You can get ultra bulky 6. It will just alter how chunky your scarf is, and you could even base that decision on what size has a color you want. So you need 2 skeins of that. You need a pair of scissors, and you need your arms. That's what we're using for the knitting needles. So let's get started. Alright, so to get started, you need to get the end of each skein of yarn. Here's one, here's the other. Put them together, and you need about 4 feet of yarn to be your tail. So just figure 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can get started. So you have your tail end and your working end. You want to take your thumb and your forefinger of your hand, put the tail end on your thumb, the working end on your forefinger, and bring it down to make a loop. Then you want to take the working end yarn, cross it over the tail, reach down and pick the tail up and pull it through this loop to make a new loop. You put this on your arm, tighten it up just a little. You don't want to make the stitch too tight because this is the part you're working with and it's going to get shoved up your arm and also going to need to come off of your hand easily. So you want to pull the tail a little to tighten it, and then this is your first stitch. So then again, you take your forefinger and your thumb, you put the tail on your thumb and the working yarn on your finger, and you're going to pull it down like this and gather these ends in your fingers. Okay, so again, tail end on your thumb, working end on your forefinger, pull that down, and gather the ends in your finger. And this is how you're going to knit. So, to begin your stitch, your second stitch, you want to come under this loop at your thumb. This is the yarn that goes across your palm. You can see that. You go under there with your hand, and then this right here, I don't know how good of an angle this will be, but you go in, pull it through that loop, and that goes on your hands, and that's your second stitch. So then you pull it tight. So watch how to do the stitch again. Thumb, finger, in, around, and you pull that up. Okay? You want to make sure that the stitches on your arm, you want them loose, but you want them to all be fairly uniform because then that is the gauge of your stitching. You want them to look pretty much the same. So then again, tail end on your thumb, working end on your finger, go under here. You're pretty much just grabbing this loop, pulling it through. So now we have 4 stitches because each stitch is 2 strands, 3, 4. Now you can make this as wide as you want to, but for our purposes, we're casting on 12. And I'm just going to kind of keep showing you this. Let's try from kind of my perspective, if we can. So you have the yarn on your thumb, yarn on your finger, the tails are in your hand. Bring this down, go under there, grab this, pull it up. Sorry. Put your hand in, and that's the stitch. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to keep going. And as you go through, you'll get faster. It'll make more sense what you're doing. Two, I'm losing count because I'm talking to you guys. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10, 11, and 12. So you just want to even them out. Don't want them twisted in on each other. Want to make sure you have plenty of slack. And that is how you cast on. All right, now we have our first 12 stitches cast on to our arm, and we're going to start with the actual knitting. It gets easier from here. If you can get the first 12 or however wide you want to make your scarf cast on, it's all downhill from here. So you still have quite a bit of tail, and you want to keep that on, especially if you're doing an infinity style scarf, because you're going to use this to weave the two ends of the work together at the end. So you just put this off to the side, and you want to concentrate on your working yarn that's coming up from the yarn, balls of yarn, the skeins of yarn. So you take this yarn and you put it in the hand that has the stitches on it. You're going to grab the first stitch, which again is 2 strands because we're working with 2 strands of yarn for this project. You're going to pull it over your hand and over the yarn that's in your hand, and then this loop in your fist you put over your hand and tighten up the stitch around your arm. Again, tight enough so that it's not floppy, but loose enough so that you can work with it. And you do that with every stitch. So you have the working yarn in the hand with that the stitches are coming off. You grab the 2 strands of the stitch over your hands and put your hand through the loop you've created. Now at this point your work looks like a hot mess. So when your work looks like a hot mess right now, don't be afraid, because so does mine. That's just how you have to get started. So don't be discouraged if it does not look promising right now. It will get better. So then you do the 3rd stitch. See, that's why you want to keep them a little loose so that you don't get all stuck up in there. Okay, tighten up. Make sure they're uniform, sitting nicely. 4. 5. 6. Got that one a little tight. 6. Kind of free up the yarn. You don't want a lot of tension coming from the work end. And then do 7. And you just want to cinch up the slack, but you can see it's a mess. It's a mess, and it doesn't look like it's going to be anything, but it will. Stick with it. 8. 9. 10. 11. And 12. And this last stitch will always be a little floppier on your arm. It's that way whether you're knitting with knitting needles or your hand. So at this point it looks like we have a tangled mess, but it will be turning into something, I promise. Trust me. So now we're going to do the exact same thing, just with the opposite arm. So this is the arm that the stitches are on. So we're going to take that working yarn in this hand, pull that stitch down, and go through the loop in our hand. Tighten everything up just a little, and just progress through, holding this yarn in your hand. Pull the stitch down to make a new loop. You put your hand in there, and so on and so forth. Just make sure you kind of clean your work up a little. Just work that yarn onto the stitch, cinch it up a little bit. Not so tight you can't work. Okay. Just keep going to get our second row done. And then I can kind of show you how it's turning from a hot mess into knitting. It's like a miracle. Okay, so there's 11. And there's 12. Cinch it up a little bit. Now, once you get this much work on here, you want to be sure to start straightening your work out. You want to pull this down a little bit just to straighten out your stitches. Make sure they're nice and uniform. And you can see the knots that are forming, that form the stitch of the knitting. So now it's starting to look like something. Kind of cinch it up. It's starting to look like something. And there's the other side. So now it's gone from a mess to maybe this will actually work. So you just keep going. The length is up to you. I'm going to go ahead and do the another row while we're talking. The length is up to you. The tutorials that I've seen, if you want an infinity scarf that you can double up around your neck, it seems to be between 20 and 25 stitches. So what I'm going to do is get to about, or not stitches, rows, I'm sorry, 20 to 25 rows. So what I'm going to do is get to about 20 rows, and then after each row thereafter, I'm going to wrap it twice around my neck, and when it gets to the size that I particularly want it to be, because I don't like my scarves to be, you know, choking me, then we will see where we go from there. So I am going to continue to work on my scarf. and I will come back to you when I have it long enough to show you how to cast off. Alright, so now I have my finished scarf. I have it as long as I want it. I think I went to around 30 rows. I don't know, I lost count. I just, like I said, wrapped it around my neck to make sure it was the length that I wanted it. And so now we're going to cast off. So it's very similar to the knitting stitch that we used. Then we're just going to finish off. So you have stitches on this arm, so you put your working yarn in that hand and knit 2. There's 1. Two. Then you knit a 3rd one. You take the first stitch. You have 3 stitches on your arm. You take the first stitch over everything, and let it fall. Okay? So now you have 2 stitches. So then you do another stitch with 3 on your arm. Take the first one over the other 2 and just let it fall. Okay? So you do that all the way down the row. Knit 3rd over the other 2, let it fall. Okay. Over the last one. Then we have 1 stitch left here. So let that fall. Let that one fall. And then you're going to get your scissors and cut the tail off, and you want to leave yourself as much, about as much as you had on your first tail, because again, you're going to use this to weave it together and make your infinity scarf. So I need to grab the scissors and cut this off. So cut your tail. Then you still have the 1 loop on your wrist, and you want to pull your tail through there, make another loop, pull it through, and you have a knot. You don't want to pull too hard because you'll cinch your end up really tight. So you just want to make sure that you have a secure knot. And then I like to, in this first space, to secure my work, in this first space here, put that through, make yourself another loop, and then just so it's double knotted. And now we're going to lay it on the table, and I'll show you how to weave your ends together to make your infinity scarf. Alright, so now you have your scarf done. You have a tail on each end. So you want to lay it out on the table and make sure it's flat. Now, you can see this is the inside of the work. You can see the little chains that make the knots. That is the inside of the work. So what I like to do is put it down inside, facing up. I'm going to make sure it's not twisted. Just going to go through, make sure it's inside facing up, all the way down, and then I get my other end. And what we will do is fold each end into the middle. Get my end here. I'm going to bring this over to here. This is the outside, the part that we want to look nice, the part that's going to be facing out when we wear it. And I'm going to bring this cast off end and bring it here to match up. So if you want a twist, like a Mobius twist in your work, you know you can flip it. And I like to do that. So I'm going to flip it right there. But if you want it to be more even, you would leave it both with the right sides up. But I like to do that little Mobius twist. And also this makes it easier for weaving together for me. So if there's two ways to fasten this. If your tail ends match up, you can lace it up this end pieces like a shoe, going every other one, and I'll demonstrate that. If you don't, if they don't match up, like if I had it like this and there was a tail at each end, you would just use one tail to weave and tie it to itself on the end. But I'm going to show you this shoelace technique. But like I said, if they don't match, I would just weave, use the same technique I'm going to use, weave one end through, weave it all the way up, and then the knot I'm going to show you, you would knot it on this side. So you don't need to worry about them being on the same side. But, because that's how I want mine, to have that little twist to it, we're going to match them up and we're going to do the lacing and shoe method. So what that means is you take from this side and you lace it through the first gap. And then you take the other tail and you lace it through the first gap. So you just go alternating all the way up your work until it's all kind of sewn together or laced up like a shoelace, like I said. So you just alternate. And this doesn't have to be super tight. It's fine if it's not. It's totally up to you. This will be the part of the work that will be behind your neck, so it won't show a great deal, but still you want to do this part on the right side of the work that is going to be out, that's prettier, so that when we're done here in a moment, I can show you how to hide the knot. And it really, you don't have to be too particular about what space you put them in, as long as you know that your ends are going to line up. So we're almost there. We'll go right up to the end here. Make sure that our ends match up well. And then I will show you how to tie the ends into a nice secure knot and how to hide it on the flip side of your work, because you put all this work into it and you don't want the crazy part to show. You want the nice pretty part to show. So get here to the end, almost there. Okay. Okay. So we have this woven to the end. These are our ends, our tail ends that match up. So what you want to do, spread everything out because you don't want it cinched up too much. Make sure it's spread out nicely, and then you want to flip the part you're working on so that you have the inside of the work. And then what you want to do is lace back on itself just one time so that it's not right on the outside edge, and the knot is going to show as little as possible. So go in one stitch length in, and then we're just going to finish it up with a regular knot like you're tying your shoe. And you want it tight, but not so tight that it cinches everything up. You don't want it to bunch. And what I'm going to do is tie it 3 times. So there's 1, there's 2, and here's 3 times. Snug that knot up, and you want to cut the ends off, and you don't want to cut it right at the knot because it's actually more likely to come untied. So I'm going to leave maybe 1/2 inch to 1 inch. This will be on the inside of the work, and this is the part that goes behind your back, so it's not really going to show. That's why we went down 1 stitch. So now you have your infinity scarf. So this is where you joined it. You put that behind your head, and if it's long enough, you could even go 3 times. So nice and cozy, warm, and a beautiful infinity scarf that can be made in under an hour, even for a beginning novice knitter with arm knitting. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope that you watch it a few times if you're confused, and if you have any questions about it, please leave your questions in the comments and I would be happy to try to help you through it. I hope that you will make one of your own and post your results on Gaming Mommies. Thanks a lot.